The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Hi everyone. Today on Aging Horizons, we have a very special show for you. We're going to be talking about abuse, domestic violence in later life, and how it differs at that stage of life from other times in your life. We have a great guest with us who has been working with this program and has all kinds of things to tell us about it. Very important. We really want you to hear everything you need to know. Stay tuned.
This is Bill. He just received his new Medicare card and is following some simple rules to protect himself from fraud. He knows to never give out his Medicare, Social Security, or bank number over the phone. And this is Nancy. She knows that to detect any problems, she always reads her Medicare summary notice or Medicare Advantage EOB to make sure the billing is correct. Both Bill and Nancy know that anything suspicious can be reported to Montana SMP at 1-800-551-3191.
Sometimes the difference between having the life-saving medications you need and going without is the premium on your Medicare drug insurance. If you're a Montana resident enrolled in the Medicare prescription drug program, you may be eligible to receive help with your premiums, even if you own your home or other assets or think you may have too much income. Call or visit the Big Sky RX website today to find out if you qualify.
There you go, ma'am. See you next month.
Thank you.
Here in Montana, we love our outdoor activities. Unfortunately, few of them are risk-free. Indeed, Montana is second in the nation per capita in head injuries that can destroy the lives of people we love. That's why you should insist your family always wear protective helmets. But you can do even more. When you fill out your vehicle registration this year, circle the Y and donate $1 to support traumatic brain injury prevention and education. Now that's using the old noggin.
I was angry and upset when the doctor told me I have diabetes. I just didn't want to deal with it, the needles and the diet restrictions. But after I started to learn about it, those feelings changed. I was at risk for a heart attack caused by high blood sugar. That got my attention. I started watching my diet and making sure I got enough exercise every day. I want to be around for my grandkids, and now that I know what to do, it seems like a small price to pay.
Ask your doctor about diabetes education or visit montana211.org.
Hello everyone and welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Kimmy Everman, and today we have a show that I think you're going to enjoy. Tough topic, but great information. We're going to be talking about abuse and domestic violence in later life. We have a wonderful guest with us today, LaDawn Whiteside. LaDawn, welcome. So glad to have you here.
Thank you for the opportunity, Kimmy.
First of all, tell us a little bit about, you have a kind of a special job right now. Tell us a little bit about that.
I do. I feel really lucky to be able to be the abuse and late life advocate for the Friendship Center.
And that's here in Helena. Yep.
And one of the reasons I feel so lucky to be doing the position is that it's sponsored by a grant from the Board of Crime Control in partnership with the Friendship Center. And it's the only abuse and late life advocate position in the state that I'm aware of, and certainly the only one funded by this particular grant. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea is to increase awareness through outreach that abuse happens throughout the lifespan. It's not just a young person problem. It's not just a young woman problem. Right. It is a problem for men and women, all genders, across the lifespan. So it's just as much of a problem for a 90-year-old as a 20-year-old. Right. And the Friendship Center has primarily been known as a shelter for young women with children. Right, and with children. We're trying to get the message out that people of all ages can use the services of the Friendship Center, whether that shelter or any of the other, I don't know, we probably provide 30 different services at the Friendship Center. And this grant provides some specific opportunities for people. Ordinarily, we don't provide for medication assistance or pet boarding. With this specific grant, we recognize the need for an older person to keep their pets with them, so we can do limited pet boarding, and the need for a lot of people who are over 50 have medications. So if the person flees their domestic violence situation and they need assistance with medication, then we can help with that for a limited period of time till they get back on board.
You know, LaDawn, I so love talking to you about this because it just, to me, is the best concept. Let's talk for a minute about that concept, because what we're saying is at 50 plus, options change in a huge way. What's that about?
Well, other than ARP, most people don't think of being 50 as being a senior.
Right.
So the recognition that age 50 is the cutoff mark for needing services is because most of the programs through DPHHS, Senior and Long-Term Care Division, and across the Medicaid spectrum are focused on people who need services for when they're raising their children.
Right.
And supporting those children. Well, the reality is there's not a lot of services available for a person that's age 50 to 62, 65 in that area.
In the same predicament of domestic violence.
Yeah.
Okay.
And kind of in general.
Well, or similar. I shouldn't say the same. Similar. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that is the reason the grant focused on people over 50 years old, because that's when services are kind of absent for that age group. So once you get to 62, 65, there's other services that come on, Social Security and things like that. So
it's kind of a wasteland in there.
It is. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that fall into that category. And as you know, Montana is aging,
yes.
just like the rest of the world.
Right.
We're expected in Montana to be 5th in the nation by 2030.
Fifth oldest?
Yes, 5th oldest. Yeah. And so this grant is trying to prepare the communities through CCR's coordinated community response teams.
Excellent.
In Billings, Helena, Broadwater, Jefferson County, and Marr County is also brought into that, so that we can get some sustainability going through this grant, because the grant will end in September of 2019. So we're trying to do as much outreach and get the information out through programs like this and in-person training opportunities, so that people will be aware of the changes in systems for people over 50 that are involved in domestic violence, stalking, sexual assault.
You know, and again, because there is such a kind of a wasteland in between, say, 50, 60, or 62, it makes it all the more important that people that are in situations that they feel they need to get out of have this resource. And I'm, you know, as I've told you many times, LaDawn, I'm just thrilled. The concept is great, because we're going to talk more in our next segment, but it's very different having a situation of domestic violence when you're 50 plus than when you're 25.
Yes, it is.
Correct?
Yes.
And just the knowledge and the thought, the recognition of that starting is so very, very important. You're right, we're an aging state, as we all are, but we seem to be aging faster here for some reason. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to go, but I think so glad that we have this. And folks, you know, although we're talking about the Friendship Center in Helena today, there are shelters and friendship centers in every community all over our state, not named Friendship Center, of course, but a place where you can go to be safe. We're going to talk some more about that. We're going to talk about what to look for when you think there might be abuse, or when you think you might be abused yourself. And we're just going to give you a lot of information and many resources that you can keep in your back pocket. Stay with us.
Elder abuse is a growing problem, and it's happening right here in our Montana communities. At least 1 in 10 older adults are victims of physical or emotional abuse, financial exploitation, or neglect. To get help or report elder abuse, call your local area agency on aging or Adult Protective Services at 1-844-277-9300.
Summer in Montana is a great time to visit your local farmer's market. Enjoy the social atmosphere while shopping for a wide variety of fresh, locally grown produce. Together with both WIC and Senior Farmers Market nutrition programs, you help feed your family 5 or more daily servings of fruits and vegetables for better health. You also help local ag producers and enhance the state's economy. So, for summer fun that's nutritious and helps Montana's economy, shop at your local farmers market.
I had a pain in my back.
I just didn't feel right.
I was short of breath. A pain in my jaw.
I didn't have any pain.
Just pressure in my chest. I didn't know it.
I was having a heart attack.
A heart attack. I could have died.
Know these warning signs and call 911 immediately. Most heart attacks start slowly and are not always intense with the typical chest pain. New medications and treatments can prevent disability and save your life.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
Welcome back, everyone, to Aging Horizons. We're here today with LaDawn Whiteside, and we're talking about domestic violence in late life. Welcome back, LaDawn.
Thank you.
Before we go any further, I want to just put the National Domestic Violence Hotline up on the screen. It's a toll-free number, 1-800-799-SAFE. Or 7233. What about that is so important, LaDawn?
Any person that calls that number, whether it's anywhere in the country, but specifically in Montana, that's what the show is about, it will direct that caller to the closest location to get assistance.
Okay.
So not all communities have a shelter,
right,
but all communities have, for example, a domestic violence victim witness advocate and victim advocate, and so it'll get the person connected, the caller connected with somebody in their local community, which is what we need.
Right.
And people that are fearful, because small communities are difficult.
Yes.
And so if a person wants to contact a person outside of maybe their very small rural community, they just need to tell that caller, that the operator answering the phone, their situation, and they'll direct them to another location, because in small communities where we know everything about everybody, we don't necessarily want to take advantage of a system that's available in our neighborhood, for example.
That's absolutely great information. We know well how difficult it can be fighting stigma about things in Montana, as you said, because of so many small communities. That's great to know. So, LaDawn, let's talk about actual late life abuse. Okay. You know, again, it's so refreshing to know that there's a recognition of the differences along that age spectrum. What are we looking for what if we see some signs? What kind of signs of abuse would we maybe encounter?
I have a long list in front of me, but I just want to talk about kind of the differences between what you see and what's happening. So do you know it when you see it?
Right.
Because the triggers, the indicators that I'm going to talk about aren't necessarily abuse. They're just things to pay attention to in case abuse is going on. And most of them have to do with taking the person's rights away from them, or the ability to speak for themselves or advocate for themselves. So for example, everybody I've ever talked to has a story about taking the keys away from somebody, right? And it either has to do with the young person and older person usually. So we'll talk about the older person who's been driving for a long time, and then all of a sudden the family or the friends are concerned about the driving.
Right.
So if the keys are taken away from the person, how do they function in their day-to-day life without the keys to the car? So is it okay to take away the keys to the car? I'm not going to say yes or no, but if it limits their access to assistance, then that potentially could be an indicator of abuse. Because some of the other indicators of abuse are taking away the shoes, the walker, the telephone, other means of, for example, canceling a doctor's appointment, cutting off access to the people that senior, that elder person might want to connect with to report something going on in the house. So that's part of the abuse and power and control is taking the control away from the senior and giving it to someone else. And that is where all of these indicators of abuse kind of stand. So if I said to you, you got to maintain your family secrets. What stays in this house doesn't go outside this house. It happens in this family doesn't go out to the rest of the world. So maintaining secrets, because the family is afraid that if the doctor or the friend or the neighbor finds out what's going on in the house, the yelling, screaming, sexual assault, bruising, those kinds of things, then the secrets goes out into the world and other people
and there
get
are
involved.
consequences.
And the biggest fear for a senior is that they won't be able to live in their own home. So threatening an individual with a different location, like if you tell somebody you can't live here, if you tell somebody you'll have to go to the nursing home, if you tell somebody they'll take you out of this home and you will be somewhere that you don't want to be. So it usually has to do with isolating a person from their services that are available. So depression, withdrawal from activities that they normally enjoy, restricting access to their church friends or their bridge friends or whatever, injuries and bruises that don't match with the story that the person's telling. Those are all indicators of abuse. Changes in banking or spending habits. If a person's a saver and then all of a sudden there's money being spent on things, that could be an indication of, it's really theft, but we use the term elder exploitation. Which is just a big word that means taking things from somebody that it doesn't belong to.
you.
So bed sores and other preventable injuries or conditions, under-medicating, over-medicating, threatening to take away, say, blood pressure medication or insulin, because that is very scary for a senior because it's life-sustaining medicine for them.
The whole gamut of just really terrible things. And and as you said, it might not be, but some of what you said doesn't seem to like it could be anything but exploitation and abuse. Wow. Hard list, but glad to hear it. I want to know what to look for. And folks, we have a lot more to talk about. As I said, this is a hard topic, but we need to have the information. So stay with us.
I was outside working on some equipment, nothing too strenuous. I started sweating and feeling out of breath.
When he felt pressure in his chest and aching in his arms, I knew we had to call 911.
First responders were there before we knew it. 38 minutes later, the doctors had restored the blood flow to my heart.
Now we know dialing 911 saved his life.
Your life is on the line.
This message sponsored by Mission Lifeline Montana.
I take care of my wife at home. When I found out training was available, I said, sign me up. It's made a huge difference.
When my husband was injured at work, it was life-altering. The classes taught me that it's okay to grieve, to ask for help, and to better cope as a caregiver.
My dad lives 4 hours away, and the Powerful Tools classes taught me that it's okay to ask for help. I highly recommend them.
To find out about this course for caregivers, go to powerfultoolsforcaregivers.org.
It's amazing the difference a little training can make.
Out here, we love our animals, from the wildlife to the livestock. Inside, it's the same. They're just like family. We keep them happy and healthy, most of the time. Secondhand smoke puts pets at risk for cancer, feline lymphoma, vomiting, increases the risk of tumors and lung cancer, even causes eye and skin disease. Secondhand smoke puts your pet's life at risk.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're talking about domestic violence and abuse in later life today with LaDon Whiteside. LaDon, good to have you here. One thing has been on my mind as we've talked, because we talk so much about Alzheimer's and dementia in aging. How does dementia affect thinking about domestic violence, or how does it affect it at all?
Mm-hmm. So there's kind of two directions that this can go. One is that, and I'm just going to use a 50-year marriage just as an example. Maybe all 50 years of that marriage have been fraught with domestic violence.
Okay.
You know, everything from yelling to threatening to hitting to sexual assault. Could be all 50 years were involved with that. That's just the standard relationship, and how difficult it is for a person in late life who doesn't have the earning capability of another 20 or 30 or 40 years. They are basically living within what they have, and by leaving that situation, they tend to be less able financially to manage their day-to-day existence. And also, a person that's been married for 50 years has got this relationship of give and take. So they're taking care, they become caregivers for each other, as well as all this loyalty and everything that happens along with the domestic violence potentially. So then we have a separate group of people, and we'll just make this very black and white, who've had a lovely marriage, no domestic violence, and all of a sudden one of the people in the marriage, the husband or the wife, developed dementia or some sort of medical condition that alters their brain. And all of a sudden there's domestic violence in their home. And the partner, neither one of them are used to this new dynamic. And so it's very difficult because they've had 50 years of a wonderful relationship. So how do they leave that person? So in both cases, it's frequent that when people come to the Friendship Center or domestic violence system, they don't want to leave the environment. They just want the environment to be more safe. So we talk a lot about safety planning. If you want to stay in the home, despite what's going on, then that is not wrong. It should be up to the person about whether they want to leave or they want to stay. So we talk to the person about what can be put in place so they can stay in a more safe environment that supports all their other needs, financially, emotionally, caregiving, etc.
And I just want to just point out, although I probably don't need to, but in this concept that we're talking about, judgment doesn't exist. It's what works for you. What keeps you safe and works for you, correct?
And when somebody comes to a domestic violence service, it doesn't matter if it's the Friendship Center or somewhere in Montana or somewhere outside of Montana, generally they have a trauma-informed philosophy. And that is, if you come to the Friendship Center, we're going to do what you want to do. No judgment. I'm not going to tell you what to do. If you want to stay there, we'll give you the tools to be as safe as possible. If you want to leave, we'll give you the tools to be as safe as possible wherever you want to go to. And you will find that across the country, not just at the Friendship Center. And
what about, you know, at after those 50-year marriages and such, what if you're in other relationships, you're dating, you know, I mean, that is not unusual any longer, the way people have access to so many others and the, you know, websites and all kinds of things.
Yep. When I was growing up, I think we just thought that didn't happen.
I know.
People didn't date after, 80.
Yeah,
but the reality is that people do date. People are lonely, maybe they're widowed, and they want a relationship. They understand that that's going to be a tough couple of years or until the end of their life if they don't have a caregiving situation. So instead of it being the exception, it's really the rule that people still want to maintain relationships and create new relationships. And with social media and all the support groups, the senior centers and all the other programs, people really are dating, living longer, they're enjoying each other's company, and that takes another different twist from what we've been talking about, because you're meeting somebody new and maybe you don't have any experience with domestic violence, or maybe you do. And the decisions that are being made are really more similar than we realized to other parts of life. It's just that now we have the recognition that people are dating and getting into relationships in the late life years.
Well, and again, not that every single one of those is going to be, end up in abuse, but I want to put up that national hotline again. I can't say enough about that. And that leads me to, what other resources should we be thinking about?
Well, always Adult Protective Services. In Montana, that number is, I will find it.
It's okay. We're going to put it, we have a great producer who will put that up for us.
All right, great. Adult Protective Services, whatever community or whatever state you're in that you're watching this particular video clip, that is always a good place to start. If you don't feel comfortable with Adult Protective Services, you can always call 911 and report that. And if you use the phone book or Google, you can just look for domestic violence and you'll find that in whatever source you're investigating.
Yeah, and once again, we want to be sure we say no judgment. It's about what you need, what you think will work for your life, and somebody to sort of step in and be there for you, and let you know that you're not alone.
Yes,
right?
Not alone, get help.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it has been just an honor having you here. LaDon, thank you so much for coming on and talking about later life and that domestic violence. And folks, reach out. You don't have to suffer in silence. We've got all these resources for you. We want you to reach out. For Aging Horizons, I'm Kim Yepperman.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.